Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, quite extraordinary is happening right now. So multiple standard issue establishment Democrats are either refusing to say whether they're going to back Biden in 2024 or outright rejecting him. The rush to separate from Biden started with Joe Manchin, who has repeatedly refused to say if he would be behind the current president.
Would you support Joe Biden if he's on the ticket in 2024 as the Democratic president seeking re-election?
Let me make it very, very clear. This is one of the most important pieces of legislation in my lifetime that we've ever done, to have energy security, to fight inflation, to help our geopolitical allies around the world.
And you've worked with the Democratic White House on it.
And that's exactly, and I'm working with it. I'm very appreciative. They are. But for me to bring the politics into it, oh, this is a Democrat bill. Oh, this is an anti-Republican bill. This is not. I'm not talking about the 2022 election and 2024. I have no control over those elections.
It's Joe Manchin, and he loves to pretend he's not really a Democrat, so it's not that crazy, right? Well, he is not even close to alone. So 2 Minnesota Democrats are facing tough re-elects, and they are calling for a new generation of leaders in the Democratic Party, specifically with regards to Joe Biden. Congressman Dean Phillips went so far as to say that Biden should not run. Angie Craig, a corporatist from the Minneapolis suburbs, said Biden could make up his own mind about whether to run, but that she agreed with Phillips on the need for new leaders. But wait, there's more. In a real stunner, 2 senior Democratic representatives who are very close to leadership also refused to back Biden. So Jerry Nadler and Carolyn Maloney, right now they are facing off in an incumbent versus incumbent primary in Manhattan thanks to redistricting. And in a recent debate, neither one would say that they are behind the president. Nadler refused, and Maloney said that she did not believe that he was running. Folks, this is truly wild, and I actually am shocked by it. To reiterate, you now have mainstream, centrist-type and liberal Democrats, from swing districts to solid blue districts, blatantly rejecting Biden. It is jaw-dropping, and it should be viewed in light of a growing pile of data demonstrating that rank-and-file Democrats, they also want to move on from Biden. The fact that some slice of establishment elites are saying they agree demonstrates there is a real opening here for a candidate to be able to assemble a broad coalition and actually defeat Biden in the 2024 primary. Because if you dig into the data of who among the rank and file is ready to ditch Biden, the numbers are actually really consistent across about every dynamic. So young people are the most ready, but race, class, gender, and ideology don't actually appear to be significant factors. If you had a campaign that could properly thread the needle, you could have a really interesting horseshoe of moderates who feel Biden is unelectable and unimpressive, with progressives who have always had a very sharp critique. Here are some of my early thoughts on how you could manage to pull that off. So first off, you'd have to lead with a message about electability. Just as in 2020, the top selling point for the establishment-friendly portions of the Dem base will be about who can beat Donald Trump. That case has never been easier to make. Right now, Biden's approval ratings are at historic lows. 80% of the country says we're on the wrong track. We've tried the standard issue Democratic approach several times, and it just hasn't worked out that well. Hillary, of course, lost outright. Biden barely scraped by thanks to a gigantic assist from Trump in his outrageously bad handling of COVID and his political malpractice in discouraging his own voters from voting by mail. Just think about it. If the Trump campaign had literally just leaned into vote by mail instead of disenfranchising a portion of their own voter pool, Trump would probably be in the White House right now. Very hard to see how a Biden who is as banged up, unpopular, and uncertain as he is right now defeats Trump or any other Republican. This case needs to be spelled out directly and will find a receptive audience, as it's exactly the reason why these mainstream Dems, like Maloney and Nadler, are running as far away from Biden as possible right now. And the tone of critique should be more in sorrow than in anger. Many Democrats among the rank and file, they're not furious with or disgusted by Biden. They feel like, okay, you got Trump out, time to step aside. The tone on the case against Biden should be more bless his heart than guns blazing. And the campaign making the case needs to demonstrate operational competence, as Obama did in 2008, to prove that they are actually up to the task of governing, not just some pie-in-the-sky utopian dreamers looking to gather a handful of protest votes. Okay, so there's that piece. Next up, the platform that could appeal to a broad swath of the Democratic Party, uniting disparate corners. It might seem like a real head-scratcher, But it's actually pretty obvious. The model is Bernie 2016. He won the white working class and he won young lefties, and he did it by running a universalist campaign focused relentlessly on core economic issues without ignoring or dismissing civil rights. This model was also proven out by extensive research that was conducted by YouGov and the Center for Working Class Politics in partnership with Jacobin Magazine. Their analysis of message testing in key swing states found that an ideologically diverse, cross-class, and racially diverse coalition could be won over by a populist economic message that did not surrender issues of social justice, but avoided what they describe as, quote, highly specialized, identity-focused language. So, verbally indict the elites who more than deserve it, rail against the millionaires and billionaires as Bernie did, foreground a universalist platform on things like healthcare, wages, unions, housing, education, be relentless on the monopolists and the economic royalists, and swear off niche activist language like it's the plague. Listen, some section of activist lefties might grouse, but that will only give you more cred with the moderates and with the independents. And ultimately, who are the lefties going to vote for? Vote for the father of modern mass incarceration, Joe Biden? If you're skeptical that the moderate Biden base can be won over, just remember, Biden and Bernie voters had far more overlap than Bernie and Warren voters, because Biden and Bernie both share mainstream working class language and a messaging approach. Beer track versus wine track. So as the moderate and the lefty portions of the Democratic base begin to revolt, it's not at all hard to imagine a campaign platform and approach that could unite them. It's anti-woke plus economic populism, and that also tends to scramble people's political circuits a bit because of how silly the press is in talking about political ideologies. So the campaign won't code as moderate or as leftist because it doesn't quite fit the mold of what these people expect. Now, the final piece is kind of the most hard to define, but it's also, in my opinion, the most crucial and the biggest single failing of the Biden administration. A successful primary campaign against Biden will inspire. It will overcome the malaise, the gloom, the nihilism, the sense that nothing is possible and no change will ever come. It will swear off some of the snark and cynicism that has taken over political discourse for earnest optimism, even at the risk of a little bit of candidate personal vulnerability and also inevitable accusations of being a little bit cringe. It will remind Americans of how we came together in the past to recover from a Great Depression, to win a world war, and create a prosperous middle class. It will have a story to tell about what that looks like today, and that story will have at its center the heroism of ordinary Americans acting in solidarity instead of the trust the experts model of anti-populist elitism that is far too common today. In other words, the campaign will have at its core a belief in the ability of Americans to actually be active participants in a real democracy. Inspiration is the area where Biden has failed the hardest. Even his victories are piecemeal, they're haphazard, they're disconnected from any story or larger vision. It's not that the economy has turned to recession, it's that there's no plan to deal with it. It's not that the world is transitioning and chaotic, it's that we've got no idea how we're going to adapt and prepare ourselves. It's not that America's on the wrong track, it's that we've lost all confidence that we will ever get it back on the right track, or even what that would look like. The country needs to be enlisted in a national project that will put Americans back as the heroes of our own national story, instead of desperately searching around for some white knight or authoritarian strongman to save us. That is the only way. So look, this man, Joe Biden, he is eminently beatable. You can look at his terrible poll numbers, you can look at 75% of Dems saying they want someone else, the growing abandonment even by elites, and you just can't conclude anything else. But the coalition has to be broad, it can't just be confined to the roughly 30% of self-identified party progressives, and it has to offer something more than just beating Donald Trump. Because as we've seen, just getting Trump out of the White House has turned out to be a very hollow success indeed that guarantees absolutely nothing for a better future. I was stunned when I saw Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler Carolyn Maloney's like, I don't think he's gonna run, and Nadler's like, just won't say anything at all. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.